Some Hollywood stars weren't just heavy drinkers, they were so drunk they had to be carried onto set. Others slurred their lines, forgot entire movies they starred in, or even died with a drink in their hand. This is the dark side of fame, the actors who were completely wasted at all times. John Barrymore. He wasn't just a star, he was Hollywood's first great alcoholic. Long before rehab was an option, he drank himself into a joke. Studios covered for him at first, but by the end, even they couldn't save him. In the 1920s, Barrymore was on top of the world. He had the looks, the voice, and the talent. But off camera, he was rarely sober. His drinking got so bad that directors had to feed him lines off camera because he couldn't remember them. Some days, he couldn't even stand up straight and had to be held up by crew members just to finish a scene. Everyone in Hollywood knew he had a problem. He showed up drunk, stayed drunk, and somehow still got roles, at first. But things fell apart quickly. One night during a live performance, he completely blanked out. Instead of trying to recover, he turned to the audience and slurred, "Line, please?" The show was shut down early, and from then on, everyone knew Barrymore wasn't the same actor anymore. By the 1930s, his drinking wrecked his career. Studios didn't want to risk hiring him, and directors stopped covering for him. Even when friends tried to help, he kept drinking. His body started shutting down, shaking hands, failing memory, and a career in free fall. It wasn't just his career that crumbled. His personal life was a mess. He burned through marriages, lost his fortune, and ruined friendships. He was once considered one of the greatest actors of his time, but by the end he was a cautionary tale. The final years? A disaster. He was broke, sick, and barely able to work. Friends had to help pay his bills, but nothing could stop him from drinking himself to death. And if you think Hollywood let him rest in peace, think again. His so-called friends stole his corpse as a prank, dragging his lifeless body around for one last drunken joke. Barrymore was the blueprint for Hollywood self-destruction. He was the first major star to drink himself into oblivion, but he wouldn't be the last. W.C. Fields. While most stars tried to hide their drinking, Fields didn't even bother. He carried a thermos full of gin everywhere, labeled with innocent words like pineapple juice or orange soda. Everyone knew what was inside, but no one dared to stop him. By the time he made it big in Hollywood, Fields was already a heavy drinker. He had spent years in vaudeville, performing night after night while nursing a constant buzz. Drinking was part of his personality, both on and off screen. He played lovable drunks in films, but behind the scenes he was far from charming when the alcohol took over. His drinking got so bad that directors had to shoot around his hangovers. Mornings were a lost cause. He was either too sick or still drunk. By afternoon, he'd start sipping from his juice thermos just to get through filming. Some days he was so hammered that he slurred entire scenes, forcing multiple retakes. Other times he skipped set entirely, leaving studios scrambling to explain his absence. Fields had a sharp wit, but when he drank, his temper flared. He'd curse out producers, insult his co-stars, and storm off set if something didn't go his way. His drinking wore down his body over time. His once sharp comedic timing started slipping, and so did his health. By the 1940s, his body was failing him. His liver was shot, and doctors warned him that if he didn't quit drinking, he wouldn't last much longer. But Fields didn't care. Instead of quitting, he had a liquor stash built into his hospital room. Nurses would find hidden bottles of whiskey under his mattress, and he'd sneak drinks when no one was looking. He drank until his final breath. When Fields died in 1946, people weren't surprised. His liver had given up long before he did. His career was legendary, but so was his drinking. And unlike other stars, he never tried to pretend otherwise. W.C. Fields wasn't just drunk all the time, he made sure everyone knew it. Errol Flynn. He was the ultimate movie hero, dashing, fearless, and always up for an adventure. But off-screen, he was a reckless alcoholic who drank so much that even Hollywood couldn't keep up with him. If there was a bottle around, Flynn was already ahead of the game. Flynn's drinking wasn't just a bad habit, it was his lifestyle. He'd start his day with champagne, switch to hard liquor by lunch, and keep going until he passed out. Studios tried to hide it, but his drinking made productions a nightmare. He slurred his lines, stumbled through action scenes, and sometimes needed to be propped up just to finish filming. During The Adventures of Robin Hood, 1938, he was so drunk during fight scenes that stunt doubles had to take over more than usual. In They Died with Their Boots On, 1941, he kept falling off his horse because he couldn't stay balanced. Directors grew frustrated, but Flynn's star power kept him employed, at least for a while. His drinking wasn't just for fun. Flynn was self-medicating, drowning out personal demons with endless bottles of rum and whiskey. He was constantly in legal trouble, facing accusations of assault and scandalous affairs. His court cases became just as famous as his movies, but instead of slowing down, he drank even harder. By the 1950s, Hollywood had enough. Studios stopped covering for him, and his reputation crashed. His once chiseled looks were puffed and bloated from years of heavy drinking. His liver was failing, but he didn't stop. He couldn't. In 1959, Flynn's body finally gave up. At just 50 years old, he died of a massive heart attack, but doctors found his organs were destroyed from years of alcohol abuse. His liver was so damaged that they said it looked like he belonged to an 80-year-old man. Flynn was Hollywood's original bad boy, but his addiction was his downfall. He lived fast, drank hard, and never made it to old age. If Hollywood was a party, Flynn drank until the lights went out. Richard Burton. He was a functioning alcoholic who drank his way through nearly every movie he made. Unlike others who tried to hide it, Burton showed up wasted on set and still delivered Oscar-worthy performances. But behind the scenes, his addiction controlled everything. Burton's drinking started early. By his 20s, he was already downing multiple bottles of liquor a day. Success only made it worse. He became one of Hollywood's highest-paid actors, but with that fame came an endless supply of booze. During Cleopatra, 1963, where he met Elizabeth Taylor, he was drunk in nearly every scene. The two fueled each other's addictions, turning their romance into a storm of booze, fights, and makeups. His drinking was legendary. He once chugged 3 bottles of vodka before noon, then went straight to filming like nothing happened. Some directors learned to work around it, shooting scenes early in the day before he got too drunk. Others just gave up, letting Burton slur his way through takes. By the 1970s, his addiction took its toll. His once powerful voice turned hoarse, his sharp looks faded, and his body started breaking down. He tried quitting. Doctors warned him he was drinking himself to death, but every attempt ended the same way: back at the bar. Burton died in 1984 at just 58 years old. His liver was completely shot, and his body was wrecked from decades of drinking. He left behind a legacy of brilliant performances, but also a reputation as one of Hollywood's most tragic drunks. Unlike others who drank themselves out of a career, Burton somehow kept going, but his addiction won in the end. Peter O'Toole. He was a Hollywood legend, but he was also rarely sober. He built a career on charm, wit, and raw talent, while drinking so much that he sometimes couldn't remember filming entire movies. O'Toole's drinking started early. By the time he became famous in Lawrence of Arabia, 1962, he was already drinking more than his body could handle. He was known to down multiple bottles of whiskey in a single night, then show up to set the next morning like nothing happened, until it started affecting his work. His reputation as a drunken genius followed him everywhere. He would slur through scenes, forget his lines, or suddenly fall asleep in the middle of filming. On Goodbye, Mr. Chips, 1969, production shut down multiple times because he was too wasted to work. In interviews, he later admitted, "I have no memory of making some films." His drinking wasn't just a problem for Hollywood. It nearly killed him. In the 1970s, doctors found that years of alcohol abuse had destroyed his stomach lining, leading to internal bleeding and emergency surgery. They told him if he didn't stop drinking, he wouldn't survive. O'Toole tried to quit but never fully gave it up. He continued acting, but his wild behavior and heavy drinking kept him from reaching his full potential. Even later in life, when he claimed to be sober, people doubted it. His reputation was too legendary. He lived longer than most Hollywood drunks, making it to 81, but his body was wrecked from decades of drinking. When he died in 2013, fans remembered him as a brilliant actor, but also one of Hollywood's most infamous alcoholics. Peter O'Toole didn't just drink, he turned it into an art form. Oliver Reed. His reputation for out-drinking entire bars made him a legend, but it also destroyed his career and eventually his life. Reed's drinking was on another level. He didn't just sip whiskey between takes, he chugged entire bottles. He once challenged 5 Royal Navy sailors to a drinking contest and won, downing over 100 pints of beer in a single session. By the end, he had to be carried out unconscious. On set, he was a nightmare and a spectacle. Directors never knew if they were getting a world-class actor or a slurring disaster. During The Three Musketeers, 1973, he showed up so drunk that he could barely stand. He got through the scenes, but barely. By the 1980s, his drinking had wrecked his reputation. Studios didn't want the risk, and his career spiraled downward. But the real tragedy came during Gladiator, 2000. Reed had been given one last shot at a big role playing Proximo, but instead of staying focused, he went on one final drinking spree. While filming in Malta, he downed 8 pints of beer, 12 shots of rum, half a bottle of whiskey, and a few doubles of cognac, all in one sitting. That night, he collapsed and died of a massive heart attack. His death was so sudden that the film had to use CGI to finish his scenes. Reed had drunk himself to his own tragic ending. Oliver Reed's drinking wasn't just a problem, it was his identity. He outlived many of Hollywood's legendary drunks, but in the end, alcohol still won. Mickey Rourke. He had everything: looks, talent, and a rising career. But instead of building on it, he drank, fought, and burned every bridge in Hollywood. His downfall wasn't just alcohol, but it played a massive role in his destruction. In the 1980s, Rourke was unstoppable. Movies like 9.5 Weeks and Angel Heart made him one of Hollywood's most in-demand actors. But behind the scenes, he was drinking heavily, getting into bar fights, and making himself unhireable. Directors hated working with him because he was either too drunk to perform or too aggressive to control. His drinking wasn't just a problem on set, it ruined his personal life. He trashed relationships, got arrested multiple times, and became known as Hollywood's biggest liability. Instead of cleaning up, he walked away from acting and became a professional boxer, a move that only made things worse. Boxing destroyed his face, but he still drank through the pain. By the late 90s, he was broke, washed up, and completely forgotten by Hollywood. Even he admitted, "I was drinking myself to death." He lost roles, lost friends, and almost lost his life. But somehow, Rourke pulled off a comeback. He got sober, repaired some of the damage, and landed The Wrestler, 2008, a film that mirrored his own self-destructive past. It earned him an Oscar nomination, but even with success, he struggled to stay clean. Mickey Rourke should have been one of Hollywood's greatest legends. Instead, alcohol and bad choices turned him into a cautionary tale. Even today, he's a reminder of how fast Hollywood can chew you up if you let it. Dennis Hopper. He was Hollywood's ultimate wild card. For decades, he was either too drunk, too high, or too unhinged to function. Somehow, he still delivered legendary performances, even when he could barely stand upright. Hopper's drinking started early, but by the time he became famous in Easy Rider, 1969, It was out of control. He drank on set, between takes, and sometimes during filming. He was so wasted while directing the last movie, 1971, that the film became an incoherent disaster, and Hollywood blacklisted him for nearly a decade. During Apocalypse Now, 1979, Hopper was so drunk and coked out that he couldn't remember his lines. Director Francis Ford Coppola had to feed him one sentence at a time because giving him a full script was pointless. Somehow, his manic energy worked for the role, but off-screen, he was a walking train wreck. Hopper's reputation was legendary, but his career kept crashing and burning. He spent most of the 80s either too wasted to work or banned from Hollywood entirely. At his lowest, he lived in the desert, talking to himself and drinking until he hallucinated. He later admitted he was drinking 28 beers, a bottle of whiskey, and doing 3 grams of cocaine every day. Then, out of nowhere, he got sober. In 1986, he made an insane comeback with Blue Velvet, playing one of the most terrifying villains in film history. This time, the madness was acting, not alcohol. Dennis Hopper drank his way through decades of Hollywood, burning bridges and ruining opportunities. But unlike most stars on this list, he actually cleaned up and made it back. His career should have been over, but somehow he outlived his own chaos. Christopher Hitchens. He was Hollywood adjacent, a constant presence in interviews, debates, and film discussions, always with a drink in hand. Unlike most people on this list, he didn't try to hide it. In fact, he embraced his alcoholism and made it part of his public persona. Hitchens drank like it was his job. Mornings started with scotch or wine, and by afternoon he'd moved on to whiskey, vodka, or whatever was available. He once admitted that he was never fully sober past lunchtime. His friends, colleagues, and even his enemies knew that if you were meeting Hitchens, you were meeting Hitchens and his drink. Despite being constantly buzzed, he was brilliant. His ability to debate, write, and command attention never seemed to suffer, at least on the surface. He could drink glass after glass of whiskey, then go on live TV and verbally dismantle his opponents. His mind was razor sharp, even when his liver wasn't. But make no mistake, his drinking had consequences. Friends noticed his once strong voice becoming raspier, his famous wit sometimes losing its edge. He started to look tired, worn down. Years of chain smoking and drinking finally caught up to him. In 2010, he was diagnosed with esophageal cancer, the kind that heavy drinking and smoking practically guarantee. Doctors told him to quit, but he didn't see the point. He once joked that if he had his life to live over again, he would drink more, not less. Even as his body failed him, Hitchens kept writing, debating, and of course, drinking. He saw no reason to stop. It was who he was. In 2011, at 62 years old, he passed away, leaving behind a legacy of brilliant writing, sharp debates, and a lifetime of liquor-fueled intellect. Unlike Hollywood stars who drank themselves into oblivion, Hitchens never spiraled out of control, but his addiction still killed him. He was proof that even the smartest minds aren't invincible when alcohol is in the mix. Nicolas Cage. Unlike the other names on this list, he is still standing, but his reputation as Hollywood's modern-day wildcard has been fueled by years of alcohol, erratic behavior, and bizarre public meltdowns. If old-school stars drank their way into oblivion, Nicolas Cage has drunk his way into internet legend. Cage wasn't always Hollywood's unhinged meme king. In the 90s and early 2000s, he was an A-list actor with an Oscar, blockbuster hits, and critical respect. But behind the scenes, his drinking was getting out of control. Directors noticed his slurred speech, co-stars saw his erratic moods, and soon his performances started getting weirder and more unpredictable. Then, the public meltdowns started. In 2011, Cage was arrested in New Orleans for public drunkenness and disturbing the peace, after getting into a shouting match with his wife. Reports claimed he was stumbling, screaming, and too wasted to control himself. A few years later, he was caught drunkenly singing Prince's Purple Rain at a karaoke bar, so hammered that he could barely stand. The drinking wasn't just a personal issue. It wrecked his finances, too. Cage went on a spending spree fueled by booze and bad decisions, blowing through $150 million on castles, private islands, a dinosaur skull, and a pet octopus. When the IRS came knocking, he had to take every role he could get, leading to the infamous era of low-budget, straight-to-DVD Cage movies. Despite the chaos, Cage never fully collapsed like the drunks of old Hollywood. Somehow, he kept delivering performances, sometimes brilliant, sometimes downright unhinged. His 2018 film Mandy reminded people why he was a star in the first place, and in 2021, Pig earned him some of the best reviews of his career. Unlike Barrymore, Flynn, or Reed, Cage hasn't drunk himself into an early grave. Yet. But his booze-fueled antics, erratic career, and bizarre public breakdowns make him the closest thing modern Hollywood has to an old-school drunken disaster. Whether he crashes completely or somehow reinvents himself again, one thing is certain: Nicolas Cage is never boring.
Behind the red carpet lies a darker side of fame. Hollywood icons revered by millions, caught in the most jaw-dropping drunken scandals. From Errol Flynn's wild escapades to Robert Downey Jr.'s struggles, uncover the secrets the stars tried to hide. This is the real Hollywood. Errol Flynn's Wild Nights, 1940s. An iconic actor of the 1940s known for his swashbuckling roles in films like The Adventures of Robin Hood and Captain Blood, Errol Flynn was infamous for his off-screen antics. Flynn's penchant for heavy drinking and partying led to numerous scandals. One of the most notorious incidents occurred in 1942 when he was arrested for statutory rape involving two underage girls, Betty Hansen and Peggy Satterlee. Although he was acquitted, the trial brought his wild lifestyle into the spotlight. Flynn's behavior was a staple of Hollywood gossip columns. He was often seen at bars and nightclubs, drinking excessively and getting into brawls. His favorite haunts included the famed Trocadero on the Sunset Strip and the Macambo nightclub, where he would often be found in the company of fellow actors and high-profile socialites. Flynn's notorious parties at his Mulholland Drive estate, nicknamed Cirrhosis by the Sea, were legendary for their debauchery, attracting Hollywood's elite and often ending in chaos. His autobiography, My Wicked, Wicked Ways, detailed many of these exploits, cementing his reputation as one of Hollywood's original bad boys. The book provides a vivid account of his hedonistic lifestyle, including tales of drunken escapades and romantic entanglements. Flynn once reportedly quipped, "I like my whiskey old and my women young," a line that epitomized his carefree and often reckless approach to life. Despite his personal life, Flynn continued to have a successful career. He starred in several notable films during the 1940s, including They Died with Their Boots On and Gentleman Jim. Spencer Tracy's Struggles with Alcohol, 1950s. One of Hollywood's most respected actors, Spencer Tracy battled alcoholism for much of his life. Known for his roles in classics like Guess Who's Coming to Dinner and Inherit the Wind, Tracy's drinking often affected his work. In the 1950s, his struggle became more apparent, with multiple incidents of public intoxication. One particularly notable event occurred in 1953 when Tracy was found passed out in the lobby of the Beverly Hills Hotel after a night of heavy drinking. His drinking affected his health and led to several hospitalizations. He often experienced severe hangovers and dehydration, requiring medical attention. Tracy's longtime companion, Katharine Hepburn, frequently stepped in to support him, even going so far as to monitor his drinking and assist him in his recovery efforts. Despite his struggles, Tracy's talent remained undeniable. He continued to deliver powerful performances in films such as Bad Day at Black Rock and The Old Man and the Sea. His ability to convey deep emotion and complexity in his characters made him a beloved figure in Hollywood. Directors admired his professionalism on set, even though they were aware of his battles with alcohol. Tracy's alcoholism strained his relationships with colleagues and affected his physical appearance. His once robust frame became increasingly frail, and his face showed the signs of heavy drinking. Yet his performances never wavered in their intensity and brilliance. Hepburn once said of Tracy, "He was a drunk, but he was my drunk," highlighting her unwavering support and love for him despite his addiction. His addiction also took a toll on his family life. Tracy was separated from his wife Louise, although they never divorced, largely due to his Catholic faith. His children, John and Susie, were deeply affected by his alcoholism and the instability it brought to their lives. Judy Garland's troubled life, 1960s. The beloved star of The Wizard of Oz, Judy Garland had a tumultuous life marked by substance abuse. In the 1960s, her struggles with alcohol and prescription drugs became more pronounced. Garland's dependence on substances led to erratic behavior and numerous incidents of public intoxication. In 1964, Garland was found intoxicated and disoriented in a London hotel. She had to cancel several performances due to her condition. Her addiction issues were further exacerbated by the pressures of constant touring and financial difficulties. Despite attempts to rehabilitate her image, her addictions continued to plague her. Garland's manager, Stevie Phillips, described her as being so drunk she couldn't stand, highlighting the severity of her condition. Her substance abuse and deteriorating health made it difficult for her to secure stable work in the industry. Her once radiant voice and commanding stage presence were often overshadowed by her personal struggles. Nevertheless, Garland managed to deliver a few notable performances during this period, including a memorable concert at Carnegie Hall in 1961, which became a best-selling album and earned her a Grammy. Garland's relationships also suffered due to her addictions. She went through multiple marriages and divorces, each contributing to her emotional instability. Her children, including Liza Minnelli, often witnessed her struggles, adding a layer of familial tension to her already chaotic life. Garland's attempts at sobriety were frequent, but often short-lived, as the demands of her career and personal life repeatedly drove her back to substance use. Dean Martin's party persona, 1950s to 1970s. A member of the famous Rat Pack, Dean Martin was known for his smooth voice and charming on-screen presence. Off-screen, Martin cultivated a persona of the perpetual partygoer, often seen with a drink in hand. While some of his drinking was part of his act, Martin did have a penchant for alcohol. Throughout the 1950s to the 1970s, Martin's love for drinking was well documented. He often appeared on stage and television seemingly inebriated, playing into his laid-back, fun-loving image. His performances on The Dean Martin Show and the Dean Martin Celebrity Roasts featured him frequently sipping what appeared to be alcoholic beverages, adding to his carefree persona. This image was so convincing that many believed he was always under the influence, even though much of it was for show. Martin's association with the Rat Pack, alongside Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., and others, only solidified his reputation as a hard-drinking entertainer. Their performances in Las Vegas were legendary for their humor, music, and revelry, with Martin often playing the role of the amiable drunk. Despite his heavy drinking, Martin maintained a successful career in music, film, and television. He starred in a series of popular films, including Some Came Running and Rio Bravo, and recorded numerous hit songs like Everybody Loves Somebody and Ain't That a Kick in the Head. Behind the scenes, Martin's drinking did have its limits. His daughter, Dina Martin, once said, "He liked to drink, but he knew his limits," suggesting that his on-stage persona was partly an act. In reality, Martin was known to switch his whiskey glass for apple juice during performances to maintain his composure while still entertaining the crowd. Marlon Brando's off-screen drama, 1950s to 1970s. Celebrated for his roles in A Streetcar Named Desire and The Godfather, Marlon Brando was known for his unpredictable behavior and off-screen drama. In the 1950s, Brando's temperamental nature and disdain for Hollywood norms led to clashes with directors and producers. His personal life was equally chaotic, with numerous affairs and a penchant for excess. By the 1970s, Brando's behavior became even more erratic, with reports of heavy drinking and weight gain affecting his performances. Despite these issues, his talent kept him in demand, although his career was marked by these tumultuous periods. One of Brando's most infamous episodes occurred in 1953 during the filming of The Wild One. Known for his method acting, Brando immersed himself fully into the rebellious character he portrayed. Off-screen, he continued this behavior, frequently getting into altercations and showing up drunk on set. His clashes with director Laszlo Benedek and other crew members became legendary, further cementing his reputation as difficult but brilliant. In the 1960s, Brando's heavy drinking became more public. While filming Mutiny on the Bounty in Tahiti in 1962, his off-screen antics caused significant delays and budget overruns. He would often disappear for days, indulging in alcohol-fueled parties that disrupted the production. His unpredictable behavior led to frequent arguments with the film's director, Louis Milestone, and the studio, which struggled to keep the project on track. By the 1970s, Brando's erratic behavior and physical decline were evident. His performance in The Godfather was critically acclaimed, yet behind the scenes, his unpredictable actions and excessive drinking caused tension. His weight gain and lack of discipline were issues that directors had to navigate delicately. On the set of Last Tango in Paris, director Bernardo Bertolucci had to manage Brando's erratic schedule and moods, often exacerbated by his drinking. Elizabeth Taylor's tumultuous love life, 1950s to 1970s. Known for her roles in Cleopatra and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, Elizabeth Taylor was as famous for her tumultuous personal life as she was for her acting. Throughout the 1950s to the 1970s, Taylor's numerous marriages and publicized affairs made headlines. Her relationship with Richard Burton, fueled by passion and alcohol, was particularly notable. The two married and divorced twice, with their fiery relationship often playing out in the public eye. Taylor's struggles with substance abuse, including alcohol and prescription drugs, further complicated her personal life and career. One of the most infamous incidents highlighting Taylor's issues with alcohol occurred during the filming of Cleopatra in the early 1960s. Taylor and Burton's on-set affair, fueled by their heavy drinking, became a public scandal. The media frenzy surrounding their relationship overshadowed the film itself. Paparazzi frequently captured the couple leaving bars and nightclubs in a drunken stupor, fueling tabloid stories and public fascination with their tumultuous romance. Another notable episode happened in 1974 when Taylor and Burton were dining at the Dorchester Hotel in London. Both had been drinking heavily, and a heated argument ensued which quickly escalated into a loud and public confrontation. The incident ended with Taylor throwing a glass of wine in Burton's face. Such public displays of their volatile relationship, often exacerbated by alcohol, became a regular spectacle for the press and further cemented their reputations as Hollywood's most tempestuous couple. Peter O'Toole's legendary drinking, 1960s. Peter O'Toole, known for his iconic role in Lawrence of Arabia, was famous for his heavy drinking throughout the 1960s. His off-screen escapades were as legendary as his performances. One night in 1963, O'Toole and fellow actor Richard Harris reportedly drank their way through several London pubs, ending in a drunken brawl that required police intervention. O'Toole himself recounted in an interview, "I did quite enjoy the taste of alcohol a lot, and there were nights when I would drink a bar dry." His drinking was so notorious that in one incident he was found passed out in a public fountain in Rome. This wild lifestyle often led to outrageous antics that became the stuff of Hollywood legend, like the time he supposedly rode a camel through the streets of Dublin after a night of heavy drinking. Despite his wild behavior, O'Toole's talent kept him in high demand. Directors and producers were willing to overlook his off-screen antics because of his exceptional acting abilities. He delivered powerful performances in films such as Beckett and The Lion in Winter, earning him critical acclaim and several Academy Award nominations. However, his drinking began to take a toll on his health and reputation. He was known to show up on set late or inebriated, causing frustration among his colleagues. O'Toole's drinking also led to numerous health issues. He underwent surgery in the late 1970s for pancreatitis, a condition exacerbated by his excessive alcohol consumption. His doctors warned him that he had to stop drinking if he wanted to live, which prompted him to significantly reduce his alcohol intake. Despite these challenges, O'Toole continued to act, delivering memorable performances well into his later years. Richard Burton's public drunkenness, 1970s. Another star of the 1960s and 70s, Richard Burton was infamous for his public bouts of drunkenness. Known for his turbulent relationship with Elizabeth Taylor, their fights were often fueled by alcohol. In 1974, during a visit to London, Burton was seen staggering out of a bar, barely able to walk. One notable incident occurred in 1975 when Burton was ejected from a theater after causing a scene during a performance. According to witnesses, he was shouting incoherently and had to be physically removed. The media had a field day, and the story was splashed across headlines. This public humiliation highlighted the extent of his alcohol dependency and its impact on his public image. Burton's drinking habits were well documented and became part of his public persona. He was often seen with a drink in hand at social events, parties, and even on film sets. His penchant for alcohol not only strained his relationships but also affected his professional life. Directors and co-stars often had to contend with his unpredictable behavior and frequent absences due to his drinking binges. Despite these incidents, Burton continued to work, though his excessive drinking affected his performances and health. His once powerful voice and commanding presence began to wane, and his roles became less frequent and less prominent. He starred in several notable films during this period, including The Exorcist II, The Heretic, and Equus, but his performances were often overshadowed by his off-screen antics. Burton's health deteriorated significantly due to his drinking. He suffered from liver cirrhosis and other alcohol-related illnesses, leading to multiple hospitalizations. Despite the toll on his body, Burton seemed resigned to his fate. He once said, "I was drunk for years. I was happy drunk," reflecting a sense of acceptance and perhaps denial of the severe consequences of his lifestyle. John Belushi's party lifestyle, 1980s. The beloved star of Animal House and the Blues Brothers, John Belushi had a reputation for hard partying that ultimately led to his tragic end. In the early 1980s, Belushi's drug and alcohol use was spiraling out of control. Known for his larger-than-life personality, Belushi often indulged in wild parties, which were infamous for their excess and debauchery. Belushi's reckless lifestyle came to a devastating halt in March 1982 when he was found dead in his bungalow at the Chateau Marmont Hotel in Los Angeles. The coroner's report revealed a lethal combination of cocaine and heroin, often referred to as a speedball. His sudden death at the age of 33 shocked the entertainment world and highlighted the dangers of Hollywood's party lifestyle. Belushi's struggle with substance abuse was well known among his friends and colleagues. Efforts were made to help him curb his addictions, but his escalating use of drugs and alcohol made it increasingly difficult. Mickey Rourke's downward spiral, late 1980s. A rising star in the 1980s with films like 9½ Weeks and Angel Heart, Mickey Rourke saw his career nosedive due to his off-screen behavior. In 1989, Rourke was arrested for public intoxication after a bar fight in Los Angeles. Witnesses described the scene as chaotic, with Rourke shouting and throwing punches. This incident was just one of many that highlighted his turbulent lifestyle. Rourke's behavior led to a reputation as a difficult and unreliable actor. Directors were hesitant to work with him, and his career suffered as a result. His erratic actions on set and frequent altercations with co-stars further tarnished his professional image. Rourke later admitted in interviews that his drinking and aggressive behavior were a form of self-destruction. "I was on a path of destruction, and alcohol was my fuel," he said. The late 1980s and 1990s were marked by a series of personal and professional setbacks for Rourke. His marriage to actress Deborah Feuer ended in divorce, and his subsequent relationships were equally tumultuous. His struggles with alcohol and substance abuse continued, leading to more arrests and a further decline in his career. The once promising actor found himself increasingly marginalized in Hollywood, with fewer roles being offered. Rourke's passion for boxing, which he had pursued before becoming an actor, resurfaced during this period. He returned to the ring in the early 1990s, hoping to escape his troubled acting career and personal demons. Although he achieved some success as a boxer, the sport took a physical toll on his body and further isolated him from the film industry. It wasn't until the 2000s that Rourke began to turn his life around. He sought therapy and gradually reduced his alcohol consumption. His comeback role in The Wrestler, 2008, marked a significant turning point, earning him critical acclaim and a Golden Globe Award. Despite his redemption arc, the damage to his career from his earlier behavior was significant and took years to repair. Robert Downey Jr. struggles, 1990. In the early 90s, Robert Downey Jr. was known for his incredible talent and growing career. However, his substance abuse issues became public knowledge in 1996 when he was arrested in Malibu. Found under the influence of drugs, he was driving erratically and speeding down Sunset Boulevard. Police found heroin, cocaine, and a .357 Magnum revolver in his car. Downey's arrest shocked the entertainment industry and his fans. His talent had been widely recognized, and he had been on a promising career trajectory with roles in films like Less Than Zero and Chaplin, for which he received an Academy Award nomination. The incident in Malibu, however, marked the beginning of a very public struggle with addiction. Downey later said in a court hearing, "It's like I have a shotgun in my mouth, and I've got my finger on the trigger, and I like the taste of gunmetal," poignantly describing the grip addiction had on him. Despite repeated attempts at rehabilitation, his struggle with addiction continued. Between 1996 and 2001, Downey was arrested several times, each incident marking a significant low in his career. His arrests included a 1997 incident where he was found passed out in a neighbor's home, and a 1999 incident where he missed a court-ordered drug test, resulting in a jail sentence. His recurring legal issues led to his being fired from the television series Ally McBeal, a significant blow given his acclaimed performance on the show. The once bright star saw his career prospects dim as Hollywood studios and producers became increasingly reluctant to work with him due to his unpredictability and legal troubles. Throughout these years, Downey's talent remained evident, but his addiction overshadowed his professional achievements. His relationships also suffered, with his first marriage to Deborah Falconer ending in divorce partly due to his substance abuse problems. Despite the support of friends and family, Downey's path to recovery was fraught with setbacks.
Some of the old-time Hollywood celebrities were into stuff you wouldn't believe, from having weird obsessions with scat
It is Austin.
to something as bizarre as an irrational fear for the color purple. There is no denying the fact that most of what you're about to be exposed to make absolutely no sense. Charles Laughton's weird diet. In his memoir, Full Service, My Adventures in Hollywood and the Sex Lives of the Stars, Scotty Bowers claims to have either slept with or arranged sexual liaisons for hundreds of the best-known celebrities during Hollywood's golden age. One of the most shocking stories involves British actor Charles Laughton. But that's not all. According to Bowers, Laughton once asked him to bring over a young male guest while his wife was out. When Bowers and the young man arrived, Laughton began making a sandwich. He carefully sliced up lettuce and tomatoes, arranged them on sourdough bread, added a bit of lemon juice, and sprinkled some salt and pepper. This is where it gets interesting. After a few minutes of prep work, Laughton took the bread slices in one hand, picked up a pot with the other, and asked the young man to follow him into the bathroom. But what happened next will shock you. Here's what Bowers describes. Charles was the first to return. He put the plate with the bread slices on the kitchen table. I could see that the lettuce and tomatoes had been lightly smeared with a light brown substance. Seconds later, Ted appeared in the kitchen. His erection was gone, and he was looking decidedly sheepish, perhaps even a trifle embarrassed. I stared at him curiously, and he pulled a face, hoping that Charles wouldn't notice. He pointed at the bread slices on the plate and then lightly patted his backside. And then, believe it or not, Laughton ate the sandwich. Ronald Reagan's obsession with young virgins. Ronald Reagan is often remembered more for his political career than his time in Hollywood, but back in the 1940s and 50s he was one of Tinseltown's leading men. But that's not all. One of the most cringe-inducing rumors about Reagan's Hollywood days comes from his co-star in the 1950 drama Louisa, Piper Laurie. She claims that the future GOP icon took her virginity when he was 39 years old, and she was just 18. But what happened next will shock you. In her memoir, Laurie writes that Reagan first seduced her on the set of their film Louisa, where he played her father. At first, Reagan seemed like a true gentleman. He even asked Laurie's mother for permission to take her on a date. Sounds charming, right? But instead of the glamorous evening Laurie had imagined, Reagan took both her and her mother to his house, where he cooked hamburger steak and salad. This is where it gets interesting. After dinner, things took a strange turn. Reagan led Laurie back to the bedroom. According to her, the actor was an insensitive show-off in bed. He bragged about how long he'd been erect, 40 whole minutes, and how much his condom had cost. But that's not all. Laurie also recounts that Reagan was far from a considerate lover. Not only did he fail to pleasure her, but when she mentioned her lack of an orgasm, his response was harsh and critical. According to her, he said, "There's something wrong with you that you should fix." Howard Hughes's extreme obsession with hygiene. Howard Hughes, the brilliant yet enigmatic tycoon, had a mind that worked in extraordinary ways. His achievements in aviation, film, and business were nothing short of legendary. But alongside his brilliance, there was a peculiar and relentless obsession that dominated his life: cleanliness. Imagine a man so consumed by the fear of germs that he would lock himself away in dark rooms for days, sometimes even weeks. Hughes turned his lavish homes into fortresses of solitude, meticulously sealed to keep out any potential contamination. The windows were often covered, creating a gloomy, almost eerie atmosphere, as if he were living in a perpetual twilight. Hughes's hand-washing routine was nothing short of ritualistic. Picture this. He would wash his hands repeatedly, scrubbing them until they were raw and sometimes even bleeding. It wasn't just a quick rinse, it was a painstaking process, as if he were trying to scrub away invisible threats. His fear of germs was so intense that he believed even the slightest contact could lead to illness or infection. But Hughes's obsession didn't stop at hand washing. He went to extraordinary lengths to avoid human contact altogether. For instance, if he had to meet someone, he would often communicate through notes or intercom systems, avoiding face-to-face interactions. He would use tissues to touch objects and had a meticulous system for handling everyday items to ensure they remained uncontaminated. Hughes's peculiarities extended to his instructions to staff and associates. He once demanded that all canned food be meticulously washed and scrubbed before opening. Imagine the bewilderment of his staff as they followed these bizarre instructions, knowing that any deviation could trigger one of Hughes's infamous outbursts. Even when he was flying, Hughes couldn't escape his fears. His custom-built planes were designed with his germophobia in mind. He often flew alone or with minimal crew, ensuring that the aircraft remained as sterile as possible. The irony of an aviation pioneer afraid of the very air he conquered is striking, isn't it? Hughes's obsession with cleanliness and germs was a constant battle in his mind. Despite his towering intellect and achievements, he was trapped by his own fears. This relentless battle between his rational, inventive side and his irrational, obsessive side created a fascinating yet tragic figure. The man who soared to great heights in both the literal and metaphorical sense was, in many ways, grounded by his own mind. Mae West's astrology obsession. Mae West, a name synonymous with boldness and wit, was a star who dazzled both on and off the screen. But behind her larger-than-life persona and sultry quips lay a fascination that guided many of her choices. Astrology. Mae West was deeply obsessed with astrology. This wasn't just a casual interest or a passing fancy, it was a central pillar of her decision-making process. Imagine a woman who, despite her confidence and unshakable self-assuredness, would not make any major life decisions without first consulting her astrologer. Whether it was a career move, a personal relationship, or even the timing of her day-to-day activities, the stars had to align for Mae. Her belief in astrology was so profound that it influenced her creative work. She wrote a play called The Constant Sinner, which was steeped in astrological themes. The narrative wasn't just a backdrop for her characters. It was interwoven with the celestial movements and zodiac signs that Mae believed so deeply in. This wasn't just art imitating life. It was life, love, and destiny dictated by the cosmos. Think about the confidence and assertiveness Mae West exuded in every role she played and every public appearance she made. Now imagine that same woman, with all her bravado, quietly consulting her astrologer in private, seeking guidance from the alignment of planets and stars. It's a striking contrast, isn't it? The idea that such a powerful figure would defer to celestial charts and predictions adds a fascinating layer to her already complex persona. Astrology wasn't just a hobby for Mae West, it was a way of life. She saw the patterns and signs as a roadmap, helping her navigate the tumultuous landscape of Hollywood and her personal life. This deep-rooted belief in the stars provided her with a sense of control and direction, a way to make sense of the often unpredictable nature of fame and fortune. Marlene Dietrich and collecting men's clothes. Beyond her screen persona, Marlene had an intriguing obsession that set her apart from her contemporaries, a fascination with men's clothing. This wasn't just a passing fancy or a quirky interest. It was a profound passion that influenced both her personal life and her public image. Dietrich didn't merely collect men's clothing, she wore it with a sense of ease and confidence that challenged the norms of her time. In an era when women were expected to adhere to strict fashion conventions, Dietrich's choice to don suits, trousers, and tailored shirts was nothing short of revolutionary. Picture her walking into a Hollywood event in a perfectly fitted tuxedo, her hair meticulously styled, and her makeup flawless. The image was striking and unforgettable, making a powerful statement about gender and fashion. She was one of the first women to popularize androgynous fashion in Hollywood. Her style wasn't about rejecting femininity, but about embracing a broader spectrum of identity. By wearing men's clothing, Dietrich played with societal expectations, blending masculinity and femininity in a way that was both provocative and liberating. She made it clear that clothing was an expression of self, not a strict adherence to gender norms. Dietrich's fascination with men's clothing went beyond the surface. She appreciated the craftsmanship, the structure, and the way these garments allowed her to move and present herself. Collecting these pieces became a hobby, a form of self-expression, and a way to assert her individuality. Imagine her private wardrobe, filled with an array of perfectly tailored suits, each piece carefully chosen and cherished. Her influence extended far beyond her personal collection. Dietrich's androgynous style inspired countless designers and fashion enthusiasts, paving the way for future generations to explore and embrace non-traditional fashion choices. She wasn't just a style icon. She was a pioneer who challenged the fashion industry's rigid boundaries. Peter Sellers' obsession against the color purple. Most people have typical fears like heights, snakes, or spiders, but Peter Sellers, he had a bizarre terror of the color purple. Now, Sellers' eccentricity wasn't the lovable, bumbling kind he often portrayed in his roles. It was far more chaotic and disturbing, making him a difficult person to be around. On film sets, Sellers was infamous for his explosive outbursts. Imagine him in a fit of rage, yelling at his wives, smashing dishes, and even brandishing a shotgun to vent his anger. His tantrums didn't stop there. He clashed with directors and producers, despite their higher status, and would often get lower-level staff fired if they crossed him. His erratic behavior was compounded by his vague racism and intense superstitions. One superstition in particular involved the famed director Vittorio De Sica. While they were working on After the Fox, Sellers saw De Sica berate a script girl for wearing purple. The director ominously declared that purple was the color of death. This statement profoundly impacted Sellers, who became convinced that the color purple could kill. From then on, Sellers' fear of purple dominated his actions. Any time he encountered the color, he'd fly into a panic, throwing tantrums and insisting it be removed. This irrational fear added yet another layer of unpredictability to an already volatile personality, making life around him a constant challenge. Charlie Chaplin's obsession with younger women. Charlie Chaplin, the legendary actor, filmmaker, and comedian, known for his iconic character, the Little Tramp, also had a much darker side to his personal life. Beyond the silver screen, Chaplin's relationships were the subject of much controversy, largely due to his well-known obsession with very young women. This fixation shaped his personal and professional life in ways that continue to spark debate. Chaplin's first marriage was to Mildred Harris in 1918, when he was 29 and she was just 16. Their relationship began when Harris was only 15, highlighting the significant age difference and Chaplin's preference for much younger partners. The marriage was short-lived, lasting only 2 years, but it set a precedent for Chaplin's future romantic endeavors. Following his divorce from Harris, Chaplin embarked on a series of relationships with teenage girls. His second marriage was to Lita Gray, who was 16 when they started their relationship and 18 when they married in 1924. Chaplin was 35 at the time. Their union was fraught with difficulties from the start. Gray's youth and inexperience clashed with Chaplin's controlling nature, leading to a tumultuous relationship that ended in a highly publicized and acrimonious divorce. The divorce proceedings revealed many sordid details about Chaplin's behavior, further cementing his controversial reputation. Despite the scandal, Chaplin continued to pursue young women. His third marriage was to Paulette Goddard, a rising star in Hollywood, who was 21 when they met, and Chaplin was 47. Though their marriage was kept relatively private and the age gap was not as stark as in his previous relationships, the pattern of significant age differences persisted. Chaplin's fourth and final marriage was to Una O'Neill, the daughter of playwright Eugene O'Neill. Una was just 18 when she married Chaplin, who was 54 at the time. This marriage, despite the age gap, proved to be the most stable and enduring of Chaplin's life. They remained together until Chaplin's death in 1977, and they had 8 children. Una's unwavering support and devotion seemed to bring Chaplin a semblance of the stability that had eluded him in his previous relationships. His preference for young women was not limited to his marriages. He was known to have numerous relationships with teenage girls throughout his life, often starting when the girls were still minors. This behavior, while not uncommon in the early 20th century, drew significant criticism and legal challenges. In one notable case, Chaplin faced a paternity suit from actress Joan Barry, who was 23 years younger than him. The case, which included allegations of coercion and manipulation, was widely covered by the media and further tarnished Chaplin's public image. The controversy surrounding Chaplin's relationships with young women has led to a complex legacy. On one hand, he is celebrated as a genius of early cinema, whose contributions to film and comedy are unparalleled. On the other hand, his personal life raises uncomfortable questions about the dynamics of power and exploitation. Chaplin's behavior reflects the broader societal attitudes of his time, where older men often pursued younger women, sometimes with dire consequences. Gloria Swanson's obsession with health and fasting. Gloria Swanson, one of Hollywood's most glamorous and enduring stars, was not only known for her striking beauty and acting prowess, but also for her intense dedication to health foods and fasting. Decades before the wellness industry became mainstream, Swanson was a pioneer in the realm of health and nutrition, turning her lifestyle into a fervent obsession that shaped her daily routines and public persona. Swanson's journey into the world of health foods and fasting began at a time when processed foods were becoming increasingly popular in America. Rejecting this trend, she delved into natural and organic eating habits, believing that what she consumed had a direct impact on her overall well-being and longevity. Her approach to diet was meticulous and uncompromising. She scrutinized every ingredient, ensuring that her meals were not only nutritious but also free from any artificial additives or preservatives. Her commitment to healthy foods extended beyond just eating organic produce. Swanson embraced a diet rich in raw vegetables, fruits, nuts, and seeds, long before such dietary choices became fashionable. She was particularly fond of juicing, often preparing fresh vegetable and fruit juices to maintain her energy and vitality. This dedication to a clean diet was not merely a fad for Swanson. It was a deeply ingrained lifestyle choice that she believed was essential for sustaining her health and beauty. In addition to her strict dietary habits, Swanson was a firm believer in the benefits of fasting. She would often embark on long fasts, abstaining from food for extended periods to cleanse her body and mind. These fasts were not just about physical health. Swanson saw them as a way to achieve mental clarity and spiritual renewal. Her fasting routines were rigorous, sometimes lasting several days, during which she would consume only water or freshly squeezed juices. This practice was unconventional and even controversial at the time, but Swanson was unwavering in her belief in its benefits. Swanson's obsession with health foods and fasting was also evident in her social interactions and public appearances. She often spoke about her dietary practices, sharing her knowledge and experiences with others. She became an advocate for healthy living, encouraging those around her to adopt similar habits. Her influence extended to her close circle of friends and colleagues in Hollywood, many of whom were inspired by her dedication and began to explore healthier lifestyles themselves. Her commitment to health was not without its challenges. Swanson faced skepticism and criticism from those who viewed her practices as extreme or unnecessary. However, she remained steadfast, confident in the knowledge that her choices were beneficial. Her dedication to health and wellness was a testament to her discipline and determination, qualities that also defined her illustrious career. Swanson's approach to health was holistic. She believed in the interconnectedness of physical, mental, and emotional well-being. This belief guided her lifestyle choices, from her diet and fasting routines to her emphasis on regular exercise and stress management. She practiced yoga and meditation long before these practices became popular in the West, as part of her daily regimen to maintain balance and harmony in her life. Her obsession with health foods and fasting also influenced her work. Swanson often took on roles that reflected her personal beliefs, portraying characters who embodied strength, resilience, and a sense of well-being. Her off-screen persona, as a health-conscious and disciplined individual, became an integral part of her public image, distinguishing her from many of her contemporaries.
Most people brush their teeth with toothpaste. She used champagne, not as a joke, not as a one-time dare. Every single day. Dentists warned her. She didn't care. Who was she? And why did she turn something so basic into a symbol of excess? A woman unlike any other. Most people wouldn't dream of replacing water with champagne, but for one Hollywood legend, it was non-negotiable. She didn't just drink it at parties, she lived by it. Hydration, champagne, self-care, champagne, brushing her teeth, you guessed it, champagne. This wasn't a quirky habit she picked up later in life. The seeds of extravagance were planted early. Born into wealth and privilege, she never learned restraint. While most kids were taught discipline, she was encouraged to be exactly who she wanted to be, and what she wanted was everything. By the time she reached adolescence, her personality was already larger than life. She wasn't just rebellious, she was unstoppable. Teachers couldn't control her. Rules meant nothing. If a school didn't meet her expectations, she simply left or got expelled. Either way, it was her decision. Her parents, exasperated but indulgent, sent her to the most prestigious institutions they could find. Maybe structure would tame her. It didn't. The only lessons that stuck were the ones she wanted to learn: drama, literature, and, most importantly, the art of capturing attention. As a teenager, she discovered her greatest skill: commanding a room. It wasn't just about beauty or talent, it was presence. She had an effortless way of making everyone around her feel like they were in the presence of someone important, even if they couldn't quite explain why. That magnetism led her straight to the stage, Broadway to be exact. While other young women were being molded into obedient starlets, she did things her own way. She smoked, swore, and laughed louder than the men. She wasn't trying to fit in. She expected the world to adjust to her, and, incredibly, it did. The making of an icon. By the time she was in her early 20s, she had already conquered Broadway. Critics might have been divided on her wild behavior, but audiences couldn't get enough. She wasn't a polished, delicate starlet. She was unpredictable, electric, alive. Hollywood took notice. Studio heads weren't sure what to make of her. She was brash, unapologetic, and had a voice that could cut through a crowded room like a knife. But there was no denying her talent. She had that rare quality that made people lean in when she spoke, waiting for what she'd say next. She didn't audition for roles, she owned them. Directors knew that once she was on set, she wouldn't just read lines, she'd command the screen. Her charisma was so overpowering that co-stars often found themselves reduced to background noise. But Hollywood came with rules. It expected women to be demure, well-behaved, controlled. That wasn't her style. She drank, smoked, and swore like a sailor. She talked openly about things actresses weren't supposed to mention: sex, politics, money. And yet, studios couldn't resist her. They cleaned up her image in glossy magazine spreads, trying to sell her as another glamorous, sophisticated leading lady. But no matter how much makeup, lighting, or editing they applied, they couldn't erase the truth. She wasn't just acting. She was the role. Every part she played felt like an extension of herself. Fierce, unfiltered, magnetic. Audiences ate it up. But fame didn't change her. If anything, it made her more reckless. While other actresses carefully curated their images, she leaned into chaos. If reporters asked her a question, she answered with brutal honesty. If a party got dull, she found a way to liven it up, often with a dramatic entrance, an unexpected striptease, or a scandalous remark designed to make headlines. She wasn't just famous, she was notorious. And she didn't care. Hollywood wanted to control her. Instead, she made it clear she was going to play by her rules. And that was just the beginning. The Broadway takeover. Before Hollywood tried to tame her, Broadway was the perfect playground. There were no cameras to censor her, no studio heads demanding she behave, just a stage, an audience, and the raw energy she thrived on. She didn't just perform, she consumed the spotlight. Critics struggled to describe her. She wasn't graceful, but she was mesmerizing. She didn't deliver lines, she attacked them. Every performance felt spontaneous, as if she might change the entire script on a whim just to see what would happen. Audiences were hooked. They didn't just come to see the play, they came to see her. Would she show up sober? Would she insult a co-star mid-scene? Would she break the fourth wall just to mock a critic in the front row? Anything was possible. One night, when a fellow actor fumbled a line, she didn't cover for him. She doubled down. "Darling, if you can't remember the words, at least say something clever," she quipped, sending the audience into hysterics. That was her power. No one knew what she'd do next, and that unpredictability made her irresistible. Her reputation grew beyond the stage. New York nightlife belonged to her. She could outdrink the men, outwit the socialites, and outshine the biggest personalities of the era. If a party didn't include her, it wasn't worth attending. But Broadway wasn't enough. She wanted a bigger stage, and Hollywood was starting to realize that no matter how unruly she was money. Studios had seen her name in the papers too many times to ignore her. Even with the scandals, the rumors, and the endless stream of outrageous behavior, one thing was clear. When she was on stage, people watched. Hollywood's wildest star. When she arrived in Hollywood, she wasn't just another actress looking for a break. She was a Broadway legend with a reputation so big it could barely fit through the studio gates. Directors knew she was trouble. Producers knew she was unpredictable. But they also knew one thing. If they put her on screen, people would watch. Her first films proved what Broadway fans already knew. She wasn't just talented, she was electric. She didn't act so much as dominate the screen. Whether she played a seductress, a villain, or a tragic lead, audiences couldn't take their eyes off her. But Hollywood came with rules. Studios controlled their stars like products, dictating everything from their diets to their love lives. That wasn't going to happen with her. She refused to be molded into the typical Hollywood starlet. If they wanted her, they had to take all of her, scandal, sharp tongue, and champagne obsession included. And the champagne? It was everywhere.
She drank it on set, kept bottles in her dressing room, and made sure every party had a steady supply. The stories about her started to sound impossible. She was rumored to have bathed in it, used it to wash her hair, and even brushed her teeth with it. Directors begged her to behave. She laughed in their faces. She was kicked off sets for arriving late, or sometimes not at all. She openly insulted the Hollywood elite, calling them dull and predictable. If a leading man annoyed her, she let him know, sometimes with words, sometimes by knocking back his drink in one gulp and walking away. The press couldn't get enough. Every headline was wilder than the last. Actress stirs up scandal at studio gala. Hollywood starlet's outrageous party leaves guests speechless. Leading lady prefers champagne to water. Dentists horrified. The studio system wasn't built for someone like her. They wanted obedient, polished stars who followed orders. She wasn't here to follow anything. Hollywood had created its own monster, and it had no idea how to contain her. Scandals, rumors, and unapologetic living. As her fame skyrocketed, so did the stories about her. Some were true, some exaggerated, and some so outrageous they sounded made up. Except with her, anything felt possible. She had no interest in hiding who she was. While other actresses carefully protected their images, she welcomed controversy. She spoke openly about sex, drank more than any of her male co-stars, and cursed like a sailor in an era when women were expected to be demure. The rumors fueled her legend. One of the most famous? She supposedly despised water so much that she replaced it entirely with champagne. Not just for drinking, she allegedly washed her face with it, rinsed her hair with it, and even brushed her teeth with it. When asked if it was true, she never denied it. Instead, she'd flash her signature grin and say, "Why ruin a good story with the truth?" Dentists warned her about the damage she was doing to her enamel. She didn't care. By this point, her reckless habits were as much a part of her persona as her performances. Beyond her personal indulgences, she had a habit of stirring up scandal in public. She made crude jokes in interviews, gave blunt opinions about her peers, and treated Hollywood's biggest events like her personal playground. Once, at a high society dinner, she reportedly took off her mink coat and revealed she wasn't wearing anything underneath. The film industry had never seen anyone like her. While other actresses played by the rules to maintain their careers, she seemed to thrive on breaking them. But it wasn't just rebellion for the sake of it. She was proving a point. She refused to be controlled. Of course, Hollywood had its limits, even for her. The industry tolerated her chaos as long as she was bringing in money. But how long could they let her run wild before the consequences caught up? At some point, even the biggest stars have to pay the price. And for her, the bill was about to arrive. The champagne obsession. By now, the stories about her were legendary, but nothing fascinated people more than Tallulah Bankhead's relationship with champagne. It wasn't just her drink of choice, it was practically a personality trait. While others reached for water to quench their thirst, she reached for a bottle of bubbly. She was never seen without a glass in hand. At parties, on film sets, even during interviews, it didn't matter. She once quipped, "I don't drink water. Fish do unspeakable things in it." That line alone cemented her reputation as Hollywood's most extravagant drinker. But the real shock came when rumors spread that Bankhead wasn't just drinking champagne, she was using it for hygiene. People whispered that she washed her hair with it, splashed it on her face as a toner, and, most bizarrely, brushed her teeth with it. When confronted with these rumors, she never gave a straight answer. Instead, she let the gossip swirl, knowing it only made her more infamous. But those close to her swore it wasn't a joke. She really did it. Dentists warned her. The acid in champagne was eroding her enamel, making her teeth vulnerable to decay. But she had little interest in medical advice. In fact, she dismissed health concerns altogether. If champagne was ruining her teeth, so be it. She had no plans to change. For her, champagne wasn't just a drink. It was a lifestyle. It represented indulgence, rebellion, and a refusal to conform. In a town obsessed with image, she refused to take anything seriously. And yet, her excess had a cost. The years of partying, drinking, and ignoring warnings were catching up. Hollywood had a way of chewing people up and spitting them out, and as much as she pretended to be untouchable, cracks were beginning to show. The price of extravagance. For years, she lived as if consequences didn't exist. Bankhead drank what she wanted, said what she wanted, and ignored every warning thrown her way. But excess always comes with a price, and she was starting to feel the bill. The long nights of drinking and partying were catching up. Her once effortless charm began to waver. The sharp wit that made her irresistible started turning against her. Some called it self-destruction. Others saw it as inevitable. Either way, Hollywood was watching her unravel. Physically, the toll was undeniable. The years of champagne abuse had done more than just fuel gossip. It had ruined her teeth. Those close to her claimed her enamel was wearing away, leading to painful dental issues. But when dentists urged her to stop, she laughed them off. The damage was already done. Professionally, the industry's patience was running thin. Hollywood had always been willing to tolerate bad behavior, as long as the box office numbers were good. But her unpredictability was becoming a liability. Showing up late was one thing. Not showing up at all was another. Directors dreaded working with her. Producers saw her as a financial risk. The same studios that once fought for her name on a marquee were now looking for safer options. And then there was the drinking. It had gone from a party trick to something darker. Friends noticed that the wild, rebellious spirit had been replaced with something more desperate. The industry loved a good scandal, but it had no patience for downward spirals. Bankhead was still a star. But in Hollywood, being a star wasn't enough. You had to be marketable, and she was slipping out of favor. The end of an era. She had spent years bending Hollywood to her will, refusing to conform, refusing to play by anyone's rules but her own. But by now the industry had moved on. The same rebellious spirit that once made her irresistible was now making her unhireable. Producers had grown tired of the unpredictability. Directors weren't willing to gamble on an actress who might show up late, or not at all. The studios that once cleaned up her messes were now looking for fresh faces, women who were easier to control, easier to sell. Bankhead hadn't changed, but Hollywood had. By the time the 1940s arrived, the industry was shifting. The wild excess of the previous decades was giving way to a more polished, controlled system. Starlets were expected to be elegant, refined, scandal-free. There was no room for someone who treated movie sets like an afterthought and press interviews like a personal comedy routine. Her roles started drying up. The scripts that once came pouring in slowed to a trickle, then stopped altogether. The clubs she once ruled were filling up with a younger crowd, people who whispered about her like she was a relic of another time. And then her body started failing her too. The years of indulgence had taken their toll. The champagne habit that had fueled her legend had also fueled her decline. Health issues became harder to ignore. The dentists had been right. Her teeth were in terrible shape. And the drinking wasn't just part of the act anymore. It was a crutch. Despite it all, Bankhead refused to be pitied. If people expected her to retreat into quiet obscurity, they were wrong. She still held court at parties, still delivered razor-sharp one-liners, still made headlines, even if the headlines weren't always flattering. But the truth was unavoidable. Hollywood had outgrown her. The enduring legend of an eccentric. She may have faded from Hollywood's spotlight, but she never faded from conversation. Even as her film career slowed, her legend only grew. The stories, the scandals, the infamous champagne obsession. People couldn't stop talking about Tallulah Bankhead. The new generation of actresses were carefully controlled, groomed to be flawless public figures. She had been anything but. In an industry that thrived on illusion, she was raw, unfiltered, and unapologetic. And for that, she became a different kind of icon. Even those who had never seen her films knew of her. She wasn't just another leading lady, she was a symbol of defiance. The woman who drank too much, spoke too freely, and laughed in the face of every expectation. The rumor that she brushed her teeth with champagne? It never died. It became part of her mythology, another outrageous detail in a life that felt too wild to be real.
Some dismissed it as gossip, others swore it was true. She never confirmed or denied it. Why would she? The mystery was half the fun. Even in her later years, Bankhead refused to let the world forget her. While other aging actresses faded into quiet retirement, she stayed loud. She made shocking public appearances, threw extravagant parties, and gave interviews that made journalists question if they should even print what she said. Hollywood may have turned its back on her, but the public never did. They loved her, flaws and all. Her famous one-liners became legendary, endlessly quoted in books and articles. Her rebellious spirit inspired future stars who wished they could break free from Hollywood's tight grip the way she had. Of course, there were those who dismissed her, who said she was reckless, that she could have had a longer, more stable career if she had just played the game. But that was never an option. She had lived exactly how she wanted to, on her own terms, by her own rules. The Hollywood's untamed rebel. For decades, people have repeated the stories, the scandalous affairs, the razor-sharp wit, the wild parties, the woman who treated champagne like water, who defied every rule Hollywood tried to enforce. She wasn't just a star, she was a storm. Tallulah Bankhead didn't play the Hollywood game. She made her own rules and dared the industry to keep up. They tried for a while, but in the end, no one could tame her. Her disdain for water was as famous as her performances. The rumors that she brushed her teeth with champagne, they stuck because they seemed possible. After all, this was the same woman who once told a director, "I'll come to rehearsal when I damn well please." The same woman who strolled into high society parties, coat draped over her shoulders, only to reveal she had nothing on underneath. She lived for spectacle. And unlike other Hollywood legends, she never sugarcoated anything. She spoke openly about sex, about her vices, about the absurdity of celebrity itself. When asked if she had ever been married, she famously quipped, "I've had a man's arms around me, but no man's yoke." By the time Hollywood lost interest, she had already cemented her place in history. The roles dried up, but the stories never did. Even in her later years, when the parties slowed and her body betrayed her, she kept the act going. She still cracked jokes, still drank, still lived as if she'd never left the spotlight. And even after she was gone, her influence lingered. Actresses envied her freedom. Writers quoted her without realizing it. The industry she once terrorized never quite forgot her. Tallulah Bankhead didn't fade away. She made sure of that. She wasn't the richest, she wasn't the most powerful, but she was the wildest, the boldest, the one who Hollywood never quite figured out what to do with. And if that meant brushing her teeth with champagne, then so be it. In the early 1940s, Ava Gardner went from being a poor teenager from Grabtown to being one of the most desired stars in Hollywood. While this transformation changed her financial status, fame came with its challenges. From navigating Hollywood as a young, attractive woman to having romantic relationships with some of the most attractive men in Hollywood, Ava Gardner lived an interesting life. In the late 1980s, she decided to let the world know some of her deepest, darkest secrets by writing a memoir. You are about to unveil some of the shocking revelations she penned down in her memoir. The Calm Before the Storm. Like many other Hollywood stars, Ava Gardner came from humble beginnings. Several years before the spotlight shone on her, Ava Gardner was living a normal life in the rural community of Grabtown. Born on Christmas Eve in 1922, Ava Gardner was the seventh child of Jonas and Mary Gardner. Right from childhood, Ava was a bright young girl, and greatness was written all over her. She spent her early years surrounded by her siblings and parents as they lived in a farmhouse. She grew up enveloped by the enchanting landscapes of the rural South, where cotton fields stretched as far as the eye could see, and the sunsets painted the sky in hues of gold and crimson. Around their house, there were acres of land where her parents cultivated cotton in order to earn a living. Truth is, Ava's parents were hardworking people, and they did all they could to provide for their children, but tragedy soon struck and frustrated their efforts. When Ava turned 3, her family experienced something that shook the foundation of their close-knit family. It was said that a fire erupted and burnt down their barn and cotton gin to the ground. It was a terrible experience that completely changed their lives. The tragedy left their finances in shambles, and Ava's family had to start again from scratch. Her family would later be relocated to Brogden, where her parents took on odd jobs in order to survive. With the dawn of the Great Depression, things got worse for the family, but through it all, her parents insisted on Ava and her sisters getting basic education. After the unfortunate death of her father in 1938, Ava and her family were left to fend for themselves. Somehow, growing up in these difficult situations made Ava Gardner even more resilient. She would later find herself gravitating towards the world of showbiz. Interestingly, her mother saw that she had star potential right from the start and encouraged her to step into Hollywood when the opportunity presented itself. Ava Gardner was still very young when she was discovered. Sure, she was excited about being a Hollywood star, but nothing prepared her for the shocking events that would unfold. Entering the tumultuous world of Hollywood, it was like a dream come true when Ava Gardner was selected to be one of MGM's young stars. Little did this 18-year-old know that fame and influence came at a cost. In the bustling streets of New York City, a star was about to be born, and her name was Ava Gardner. Her journey to Hollywood stardom was set in motion by a series of serendipitous events and the discovery of her radiant beauty. As fate would have it, one fateful day, her elder sister's husband, who was a portrait photographer, thought it would be wise to take pictures of young Ava Gardner and display them in his studio. Ava Gardner's beauty and natural charisma were evident from the moment she stepped in front of Larry Tarr's camera. Recognizing her potential, Tarr wasted no time and took several captivating portraits of the young beauty. Larry Tarr was so impressed by Ava's photographs that he displayed them in the window of his photography studio. Little did he know that these very pictures would become the catalyst for Ava's journey to stardom. One of those very portraits caught the eye of a prominent talent agent, who was immediately struck by Ava's stunning features and undeniable allure. This agent wasted no time in reaching out to Ava and offering her an opportunity that would change her life forever. The name of this influential talent agent was Al Altman. He saw in Ava Gardner the potential for greatness and saw to it that her talent was recognized by the right people in the entertainment industry. It wasn't long before Ava's unique beauty and promising star quality caught the attention of none other than MGM Studios, one of Hollywood's most prestigious film studios. MGM was determined to turn this diamond in the rough into a shining star on the silver screen. She may not have aced her first test in the studio, but they believed that they could train her and turn her into a star. With a contract in hand, Ava Gardner bid farewell to her life in New York and embarked on a new chapter in Hollywood. It was 1941 when she made her debut in a small role in the film Babes on Broadway, which was just the beginning of her remarkable career. Her looks were undeniably instrumental in opening doors for her in Hollywood. With her piercing green eyes, cascading brunette locks, and radiant smile that could light up the darkest room, she possessed a kind of beauty that was simply irresistible. But it wasn't just her beauty that set her apart. Ava had a presence and confidence that demanded attention, making her a standout among the aspiring starlets of the time. As she honed her acting skills and gained more experience, critics and audiences alike couldn't help but notice the raw talent that lay beneath her beautiful exterior. She had a unique ability to connect with her characters and bring them to life on the screen. As the years went by, Ava Gardner's star continued to rise, and she went on to deliver unforgettable performances in iconic films like The Killers, Mogambo, and The Barefoot Contessa, making her one of the brightest stars in Hollywood. As expected, her glory days in Hollywood came with a lot of attention from men. She was one of the most desired actresses of her time, and a lot of influential men wanted to be with her. But after several years of fame and influence, Ava Gardner found herself in a dark place in the late 1980s. The lights had dimmed and the applause had faded. She was broke, alone, and usually drowning in alcohol. This was the period that she made up her mind to write a memoir, revealing some of her deepest, darkest secrets. Her shocking revelations about Mickey Rooney. I either write the book or sell the jewels, and I'm kinda sentimental about the jewels. Ava Gardner said this as she explained why she made up her mind to write a book. She desperately needed to get out of the financial situation she was in, and she knew without a shadow of a doubt that a memoir would grab the attention of several people and sell like crazy. As soon as her mind was made up, she called the renowned British journalist Peter Evans to ghostwrite a book filled with her deathbed confessions. At the very top of her confession list was the story of her relationship and marriage to none other than Mickey Rooney. Ava Gardner was only 19 years old when she met Mickey Rooney on the MGM set. The young Mike Rooney was filming a comedic musical number when Ava Gardner stepped in. Mickey was completely mesmerized by her beauty, and he could not resist her. Soon after, they fell in love and got married. Ava revealed that she was innocent and still a virgin when she married Mickey Rooney. In her memoir, she stated that Mike Rooney was extremely sexually attracted to her and that she had no idea that he was a cheater. In her words, "I still didn't know he was the biggest wolf on the lot. He'd screw anything that moved." The two youngsters seemed like the it couple, but their marriage was not as it seemed on the surface. In her memoir, Ava Gardner made shocking revelations about her tumultuous relationship with Mike Rooney. According to her, her marriage to Mickey Rooney would become a tumultuous affair, riddled with betrayal and heartache. After their wedding, he began to unleash the cheater in him. She recalled a particular incident that took place at one of the lowest moments of her life. She had fallen ill and was hospitalized after an appendectomy. To her greatest surprise, Mike Rooney didn't hesitate to cheat on her. Even though Ava was recovering from an appendectomy in the hospital, Mickey Rooney's wandering eye knew no bounds. In a stunning display of audacity, he chose to cheat on his stunning wife right in their marital bed. As Ava Gardner lay in the hospital, weakened from the surgery, she never expected her husband's disloyalty to strike so close to home. The betrayal in her most vulnerable moment was proof of Rooney's reckless behavior all through their marriage. Known for his insatiable appetite for women, Mickey Rooney seemed to move from one conquest to another with ease. According to Ava, he went through the ladies like a hot knife through fudge, indicating the extent of his infidelity. Through her candid statement, Ava Gardner shed light on the painful reality of her marriage, unveiling the heartache she endured as her husband's eyes wandered all through their marriage. Through it all, they maintained an image of a perfect couple on the outside, until their marriage came crumbling down in May 1943, a year later. Sadly, her tumultuous first marriage was only the beginning of a series of romantic relationships that would affect Ava Gardner in ways she never imagined. She never loved Howard Hughes. After her first marriage came to an end, the actress got into a relationship with Howard Hughes. She had genuinely given her heart to Mike Rooney, but she couldn't say the same for Howard Hughes. In her memoir, she revealed that she never loved Howard. She made it clear that she was appreciative of what he did for her mother, but she didn't like certain things about him. When her mother was dying, Howard paid for her medical care. This was a reflection of his kind heart, but there were some things about him that she just couldn't shake off. In her memoir, she alleged that Howard had prejudiced views and biased attitudes. In her words, Howard wouldn't piss on a black man to put him out if he was on fire. As surprising as this revelation was, Ava Gardner was just getting started. Her next revelation was about Artie Shaw, her second husband. She called Artie Shaw a bully. Her career was beginning to take off in the mid-1940s, and everything seemed to be going well. Then she met Artie Shaw. He seemed like the perfect man, but time would prove otherwise. As fate would have it, Ava's introduction to Artie came through a mutual friend, actress Frances Heflin, and it was an encounter that sparked a whirlwind romance. Artie had just returned from the Second World War, and he was riding the waves of fame as a celebrated band leader and composer. When they met, they looked like a match made in heaven. With his intelligence and charisma, Ava fell head over heels for him in no time. Their love blossomed, and after several months of dating, Ava took the leap and moved in with Artie. On a serene October day in 1945, the couple exchanged vows in a small ceremony at their Beverly Hills abode. Ava was 22 at the time, while Artie was 35 years old. Their age gap seemed to not be a problem, and their love certainly looked beautiful on the outside. Unfortunately, the fairy tale took a bitter turn once the confetti settled. Despite a longer courtship and living together before tying the knot, Their marital bliss was short-lived, and the relationship began to unravel after the wedding bells had chimed. In the pages of her memoir, Ava Gardner would later lift the curtain on the truth behind her turbulent marriage. The Artie Shaw she thought she knew was not the man he appeared to be. Ava revealed that beneath Shaw's suave exterior lay a different side, a kind of bully who constantly belittled her, chipping away at her confidence and happiness. In her words, "He was another kind of bully. He was always putting me down." The revelation in her memoir was a shocking twist in the tale of their love story, unveiling a darker reality behind the glamorous facade of Hollywood's golden couple. Ava Gardner's revelation about Artie Shaw certainly came as a shock to a lot of people who thought their marriage was flawless, but what was even more surprising was what she did as a result of the pain that Artie Shaw put her through. She took an IQ test. Within the pages of her memoir, Ava Gardner would unveil something that she did while she was married to Artie Shaw. Despite the success she had amassed in Hollywood, Ava claimed that she found herself grappling with feelings of intellectual inadequacy when she was married to Artie Shaw. She claimed that she was so unhappy that she found herself indulging in vices. According to her, she was smoking 3 packs of Winstons a day and getting drunk constantly while she was married to Artie Shaw. In her words, "He had me convinced that I was completely stupid. I didn't have an enormous IQ, but I did have a high one." In her memoir, she revealed that her then-husband, Artie Shaw, said and did things that made her doubt herself. Ava felt intellectually overshadowed by Shaw's brilliance, which left her yearning for a way to measure her own intelligence. In search of validation, she decided to take an IQ test. The IQ test became a pivotal moment in Ava's life, as it revealed that her insecurities were unfounded. Her results indicated a high score, proving that she was more than just a woman with good looks. She possessed intelligence and wit that could rival the best. The revelation of her high IQ score was both empowering and liberating for Ava. After seeing the test result, her self-doubt was finally put to rest. The couple later got divorced on the 25th of October 1946. She claimed that Artie dumped her 1 week after their first anniversary for another woman. However, the end of her marriage to Artie Shaw would lead her to a man that she considered the love of her life, finding true love in a secret affair. When Frank Sinatra laid his eyes on Ava Gardner, he knew then and there that he wanted her for himself, but he was married at the time. Although he ended up leaving his wife for her, Ava Gardner revealed that she was unfaithful to Frank Sinatra. In the late 1940s, Ava Gardner's career was on the rise. She was making waves for her role in high-profile movies like The Hucksters and The Great Sinner. This was the period that she began to fall in love with renowned singer and actor Frank Sinatra. Ava and Frank Sinatra initially met while she was still married to her first husband, but nothing transpired between them until they met again in a party in 1949. Frank was still married to Grace Sinatra at the time, but their marriage was reportedly in shambles. It was said that Ava and Frank could not stay away from each other, so they began a secret love affair. They tried to be discreet, but the world soon found out about it. In her memoir, she said Frank Sinatra knew that it was true love on the first date. This was how their first date went. In the late-night hours, as they embarked on a drunken drive from Palm Springs to Indio, an adventure unfolded that solidified their bond. Armed with a pair of .38s kept in his glove compartment, the chairman and his beloved companion playfully shot out streetlights and store windows, leaving behind a trail of unforgettable memories. Frank was in the process of divorcing his wife at the time, but as soon as the divorce was final, he and Ava tied the knot in 1951. Ava was in her late 20s at the time, and Frank was in his mid-50s. Their love was said to be electrifying at the start, but things soon changed. In her memoir, she revealed that they started having problems during their courtship. From the outset, their courtship seemed like a tempestuous whirlwind, marked by fiery encounters and bouts of boozing and fighting. While their passionate connection drew them together, it also led them down a path filled with turbulence and emotional storms. Ava also revealed that she got pregnant twice when she was with Frank Sinatra, and she aborted both times. These heart-wrenching choices made amidst the strains of their relationship left an indelible mark on both of their lives. As the years passed, the fervor that once brought them together couldn't save them from their own inner demons. The same intensity that sparked their romance seemed to fuel their conflicts, leading to a marriage that mirrored the turbulence of their courtship. Their union became plagued by public dispute and chaos that filled the tabloids. Shockingly, one of Ava Gardner's deathbed revelations was about her secret affair with Robert Mitchum. She revealed that while she was seeing Frank Sinatra, she was having an affair with Robert. In her words, "I was crazy about him." When she summoned the courage to tell Robert that she was also seeing Frank Sinatra, he ended things immediately. In her memoir, she detailed what he said: "Get into a fight with him and he won't stop until one of you is dead." Gardner said Robert didn't want to risk it being him, so he fled for his life. Frank Sinatra and Ava kept trying to make things work, but after a while they decided to end things. Their divorce was later finalized on the 5th of July, 1957. Ava went on to reveal more facts about her relationships, but her claims about what George Scott did to her were indeed shocking. George C. Scott did this to her behind closed doors. One of Ava Gardner's deathbed revelations was the truth about her brief relationship with George Scott. While the duo were dating back in the day, their fans admired them and people said they were a cute couple. However, there was nothing cute about what was happening between the couple behind closed doors. She claimed that George Scott had been abusive towards her while they were in a relationship. She went on to detail one of the fights they had and how dark it got. According to her, he got physically abusive when he was drunk. In one of their fights, she said Scott smashed bottles to make weapons. She was terrified of what he was going to do next, but again, he had abused her this way before. In her words, "He was kneeling across me, waving the jagged edges of the glass in front of my face with one hand and hitting me with the other, telling me he loved me and smashing a fist into my eye. 'Marry me, do you hear what I'm saying?' Followed by another blow." People were certainly shocked to find out that she endured all this, but of all the things she said in her memoir, she made it clear that she was aware that she made bad choices when it came to men. She also said that her friend warned her about some of the men that she dated, but she didn't listen. Lana Turner tried to warn her. All through her lifetime, some of her heartache came as a result of the men she chose to date. Perhaps if she listened to her best friend, things would have been different. Ava Gardner's best friend, Lana Turner, was also known to have attracted some of the most successful and influential men at the time. Interestingly, she was once romantically involved with some of the men that Ava Gardner was later involved with. She saw the different sides to these men, and she knew what they were capable of, so she didn't hesitate to advise Ava Gardner. When Ava Gardner told Lana about her decision to be with Frank Sinatra, Lana begged her not to go through with it. Interestingly, Lana had affairs with both Frank Sinatra and Shaw in the past, so she was well equipped to advise her friend. Recalling what her best friend told her, Ava Gardner wrote, "I've been there, honey," she told me. "Don't do it." I should have listened to her. The deed had already been done. She got into the relationships, learned her lessons, and lived to tell her story. The actress's life was truly one hell of a ride, but through it all, she tried to live life to the fullest. Although she started married to each of her husbands for a short period,